Welcome. My name is Heather Carey. I'm your instructor for ESSI 101. First of all, I want to truly apologize for not having class on Thursday night. I had no internet. I went to FaceTime with my grandson and it was pixelating so bad. And I knew that I would not be able to record class with you since I couldn't have, I couldn't FaceTime with my grandson and there was all of you. So I'm going to record class. It may have to be in more than one video, but I will go over the material and there will be some assignments for you to do along the way. So first of all, I want to show you, make sure when you go through the course, you do go to start here because along there is where you're going to have the welcome, the meet and greet. You are going to have the book for this course, the Somebody Else's Kids, as well as the syllabus for this course. That's really important. And that I had already sent all that out, but that is really important for you to get to know. Before that, though, we'll go to home. I want to show you around here a little bit. In the syllabus, we have, and I know I kind of went over just a little bit of this. Remember, and I won't be doing it tomorrow night because it is Labor Day, but following the next week, I will have office hours. But during this next week, if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me. You're also welcome to text me. But I do prefer email to my BVU email. And then remember to give me 24 hours to get back to you. Typically, I get back to you pretty quickly, but make sure to, I do have 24 hours to get back to you. I do have 4 children, and I do have a grandchild that will be born very soon, another grandchild. So make sure to give me that grace, just as you want to make sure that I give you grace as well. So this syllabus has all the information that you're going to need. It has the team meetings link, the description, the objectives, the in-task standards. Then you go to the modules, okay? Module 1. So the module is broken up into 3 sections. It's broken up into the online and the in-class portion. You really want to do the online portions before you come to class, if at all possible. So the first part, the essential questions. So remember, this is last week's class, not this coming up week, last week's class. How do we use labels in special education? What approaches to inclusion and the education of exceptional learners are best practice? Pre-service teachers will be able to identify and discuss historical events that lead to current educational practices related to the instruction of exceptional learners. Pre-service teachers will be able to articulate the impacts of exceptionalities on individuals and families. And then this is the rest of the stuff that you want to do for this section. So you'll have your quiz for special education podcast. You'll have a podcast to watch and take a quiz on it. You can take the quiz 3 times. Now, it'll be averaged. And if there's short answers in that quiz, you have to make sure to give me time to answer those, to correct those by hand, because I have to go in and correct those every single time, okay? Then you're going to want to read chapters 1 through 6 of Hayden's Somebody Else's Kids. Then you complete the next part of the module, and this is your online portion. So again, essential questions. What are the differences between universal design and retrofitted instruction? How does the multi-tiered system of supports, MTSS, inform general and special education practice? And then you'll have your objectives. Pre-service teachers will differentiate universal design and retrofitted instruction, generating examples of strategies and appropriate uses of each. And then you'll be able to accurately represent the 3 tiers of MTSS, okay? Again, this is your on your own part. Here's your readings, your podcast quiz. This is some websites that you should review. So this one is on UDL. This is one that you might want to use at a later time, especially as you get to working on lesson plans. So when you think of universal design for learning, we think of engagement, representation, and action and expression. So engagement, this is for interest, identities, effort, and persistence. And then you can click on this and it will take you into different ways and how to get students engaged in the lesson. And this is really cool. How you can clarify the meaning and purpose of goals, ways to foster collaboration. And each time you click on it, it'll take you further down. So like if you do that by creating teams with clear goals, roles, expectation, responsibilities, use prompts or protocols. It's just it's a really nice way to get students involved in the lesson plans. If you look at representation, see, and I usually like to go to this chart. I'm a visual learner, so I prefer to look at the chart this way because I like here, I can see to clarify vocabulary, symbols, and language, support decoding. So this is just another way to use that chart. So when you're writing lesson plans, you want to be thinking of different ways to write your lessons. And you'll get into that more later. This is that differentiation. Oops. And then there's a UDL discussion. And so here it talks about briefly describe your understanding of the three areas. And it's okay if you really didn't have any understanding. But it also talks about using an APA reference. Well, right there was some references within your reading, and you can use one of those references. You don't have to come up with a new reference on your own. But make sure to cite your reference appropriately. So if you don't know how to cite a reference, what you can do is take this, copy it. If you go into a Google Doc, I'll show you how to create a Google Doc, a citation. Oh, okay. So within yours, you should have where you can create citations here. Now I gotta remember where it's at. Citations right here. So on the side, you can, whether it's MLA, I do prefer APA. Okay. And then what we have is a website. And then you just put the website in, search for the website, continue. And sometimes it has the information. I'm not sure if it does or not. And then insert your reference. And then if you need to add like the in-text citation, you can also do that. But so hopefully that will help as well. Okay, so that was kind of what you need to do for the in-class part. I typically don't go over that, but I didn't get to do that with you for in class. But now here is what we would have gone over Thursday night. So Foundational Foundations of Understanding, Module 1. The lesson objectives are that pre-service educators will be able to articulate the purpose and appropriate use of labels in order to establish your own philosophy on this topic. You'll be able to define and describe the essential components of IDEA, or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, in your own words and relate the significance of these components to your own professional practice. And you'll be able to compare and contrast areas of accommodations and modifications to components of the UDL framework, which I just kind of showed you. And you will apply the decision-making process to an MTSS case study. Okay. So when you think of labels, I know that, hold on just a second here. Oops. When we think of labels, there's a lot of different ways to think of labels. You can think of special education, how they portray it on TV, charities, history, humor, language. Why do we use labels? What is person first language? So the Iowa Department of Education has adopted the position that disability categories or labels across all ages are not needed in the educational setting for several reasons. The use of labels does not identify an individual's unique needs. Labeling encourages the perceptions that all individuals in a category have the same characteristics. A label in and of itself does not provide educators with information regarding the individual's instructional needs, which I want you to think about that. Because if you think of an individual having autism, what does that tell you about them? I know a lot of individuals that have autism, but I don't know that individual specifically. In fact, I can think of two different people with autism. They are nothing alike. They like totally different things. They have totally different strengths, and they did totally different things within the classroom setting. Educators' expectations based on labels may influence the performance of many students. Labeling in most cases is negatively loaded terminology and may be permanently stigmatizing. Labeling puts the burden of failure on the student, and the use of labels may become the basis for assigning an individual to more restrictive services than required. So one of your assignments, I know, was the assignment of the labels, okay? So what we will be doing is you will still be working on the philosophy on labels, and that will be built in here. So based on the readings considering labels, you will have to write your philosophy statement on the philosophy of the use of labels in schools and classrooms, and define if and how they should and should not be used. And you don't have to respond to anybody, but you still need to do that, how they should be used within the classrooms, okay? So think about labels. Labels are an important part of our education system. And I want you to come to class prepared to tell me why. Why are they important? And then why are they not? So I want you to come to class after your readings and you know what? Maybe I'll just put a sticky note We can do that right there on in this course instead. And then we'll refer back to it. So the philosophy of labels. Um, it's important to address when, where, and how labels should and or should not be used as well. Um, does it have to be an all or nothing? So the state of Iowa, as permitted by federal law, utilizes a non-categorical designation for all individuals ages birth through 21. The term eligible individual is used for individuals who are determined to be an individual with a disability who are in need of special education related services. So if you go to this website here, it's going to show you what that is. And I can't do it within here, but we will talk about that some more in class. There's several different disabilities, and I will show you that. So the 6 principles of IDEA, based on your readings, what we would have done in class is to define each of these components: free and appropriate public education, appropriate evaluation, individualized education program, least restrictive environment, parent and student participation, procedural safeguards. Instead, I did this for you. You are going to have an assignment where you have to do this. And it's going to have to be, you will have to put in your own words. So you're not going to want to copy this, okay? Free and appropriate public education. IDEA gives each eligible child with disabilities the right to a free and appropriate public education. That means they're provided public education under public supervision at no cost to the parents. So that means they receive books, they receive anything general education students do. But now if they go out for show choir or something that costs extra that other kids have to pay for, they still have to pay for those things. That means the standards established by the State Department of Education that are designed to meet the unique needs of each eligible student, provided according to a written IEP, provided to students from preschool through high school. They can go to age 21 if it is still deemed that there's a need not met. Sometimes we can't prove that a need is not met. That continue to be provided to students who have been suspended or expelled. So if there's suspended or expelled, there is a continuum of services that we have to figure out how to meet those services. Special education programs must be designed for the student to make progress in the general education curriculum if there's only one curriculum for all students. Provide a chance for students to meet challenging goals, more than one minimum benefit, but with no requirement to maximum potential. So it's not the same across, for all students. Include related services and supports and provide for participation in extracurricular and other school activities. I have many students that go out for show choir, that go out for bowling, that go out for track, cross country. Include extended year services when necessary to provide FAPE. Appropriate evaluation. IDEA requires that a student must receive an evaluation before providing special education services to determine whether the student qualifies as child with a disability according to IDEA definition, and if so, to determine the educational needs of the student. Parents must give permission for evaluation and for services. The student must be evaluated in all areas of suspected disability. Okay, that doesn't mean we test every area, just where it's suspected. The evaluation should include a variety of tools and strategies to gather functional, developmental, and academic information. So we look at RIOT: review, interview, observe, and test. So we look at a whole variety of ways. An evaluation should never be based on a single measure or assessment. The instruments and methods used for the evaluation must be technically sound, not culturally discriminatory. So we want to make sure it's in their language if possible, and provided in the language. Administered by trained and knowledgeable personnel. So like I'm a consultant, I can go in and test, maybe a psychologist. A new or updated evaluation should be conducted if there's reason to suspect a need. We are going in and trading in our kits for new ones. And an evaluation must be conducted within 60 calendar days of the parent giving permission. Reevaluations may occur when conditions warrant new information. The parent requests reevaluation. A comprehensive reevaluation must be completed every 3 years, unless both the parent and educators agree it is not necessary. Every 3 years, it is the minimum requirement for a reevaluation, and it may be conducted more often if needed, but not more than once a year. Individual education evaluations, parents have a right to request an IEE at public expense if they disagree. So when I do the evaluation, if parents don't agree with my outcomes, then they can get their own opinions. Now, that may mean they have to pay for it. Parents may seek an independent evaluation, so at their own expense. IEP. An IEP is a written statement for each child with a disability that is developed, reviewed, and revised at least once a year by a team, including educators, parents, and the student whenever appropriate, and others who have knowledge or expertise needed for the development of the student's special education program. The key word is individualized. The IEP must contain measurable goals written for where we want a student's skills to be in a year. It must also be designed to offer meaningful progress in the general education curriculum and functional performance. We don't want to write for more than a year's growth because otherwise it's probably unattainable. Special education is not a place. It's a continuum of services. Parents are involved in both program and placement decisions. Parents and the student need to be meaningfully involved in the development of the program and revisions. Least restrictive environment. IDEA requires, to the maximum extent appropriate, children with disabilities, including children in public or private institutions or other care facilities, are educated with children who are not disabled. LRE is means that any placement outside the general education classrooms must be justified by the child's individual disabled related needs. In fact, I have a student right now that's not placed at the school. Students must have meaningful access to same-age peers without disabilities when appropriate, must consider providing any needed services in the general education classroom and other integrated settings, involvement in music, art, physical education, school trips, clubs, extracurricular, and other activities must be accommodated. Funding is never an appropriate reason for more restrictive placement. And then states must maintain a full range of placement options. Parent and student participation in decision-making. IDEA is very specific about what schools must do to ensure that parents have the opportunity to be active participants in each step of the special education process. Parents, and whenever appropriate, the student must be meaningfully involved in the development, review, and revision of the IEP. Educational placement decisions, determining what data needs to be collected during the evaluation, reviewing evaluation data, and transition planning. So, and I'm a part of that transition planning. We want to look at living, learning, and working outside of the school setting. And then procedural safeguards. The IDEA includes important procedural safeguards to ensure that the rights of children with disabilities and their parents are protected and that they have access to the information needed to effectively participate in the process. Parents are entitled to this notice in writing, and we have to mark it on the IEP that we have provided them that information. Notice in writing of IEP meetings, prior written notice whenever the child proposes to change or refuses to change the educational programming. And then parents are entitled to access student records. They may review educational records for their child. They may obtain copies of educational records for their child. They may place a statement of correction or explanation in the student's records if they don't agree with something. Parents have a variety of procedural protections. the resolution facilitator process, a mediation conference, a formal written complaint, and a due process hearing. It is a lot, okay? So looking at UDL, and I kind of showed you this before. So when we look at UDL, the goal of UDL is for the learner, okay? We have multiple means of engagement. Engagement, the essential role plays in learning is for their interest to motivate them. Learners may be highly engaged. Some like to work alone, others prefer to work with other peers. And so through this, um, it shows how they can access learning, ways they can support their learning, and then their executive functions. And by clicking on these different boxes, you can figure that out. Here for representation, you can do the same. Perception, ways they can access representation, ways they can support it through language and symbols, oops. And then for executive function, ways to build their knowledge. And then design multiple means of action and expression. How they can access interaction, design options for expression and communication to support that, and executive functions for strategy development. So those are all different ways for that. Okay. So are there times when it makes sense to make supports for a few available to all? Yes. And on here, you can look at content, instruction, environment, technology, and you can pull that up. So now, when we look at this for the Buford assignment, what I'm going to do on this Buford assignment is I am going to make this so that it is extra credit, okay? So how you get there is, it says, read and respond to the following prompts based on your team notes in order to justify decisions. So what you have to do is you're going to have to go through this on your own, okay? And it will not count against you if you don't do it. But if you do go through it, it will be just extra points. I am not going to count it against you. But it'll be important that you read each of these things. It'll help you understanding MTSS. Okay, so you're going to want to read about Buford Beaver, okay, and it talks about his language arts, mathematics, science, and it talks about his referral, additional information, his interventions, and it says you are the MTSS team. You need to make a recommendation to, and then you decide, and you work through that. As you work through that, that is the quiz. Okay, so as you work through that quiz, here's the preview, and then you make the answers here, and it's just extra credit. Okay, I am not going to count it against you if you don't do that, but again, it's just going to be free points. Okay, somebody else's kids discussion. So, what you're going to have to do, let me go over the calendar, your assignments for this next week. For this next week, for today, I know you'll have a quiz due, a brief history. That'll be due for Sunday the 1st. Book study reflection on learning 1. Okay, yeah, your original post is due today. So it says in chapters 1 through 6, we meet Boo and Lori. They each have a label, namely autism and brain injury. What do we know about each of the characters based on their labels? What characteristics does each student present that is evidence of their disabilities? Does either Lori or Boo display any unique characteristics that define who they are beyond their label? So what you want to do is you want to make your original post by today, by Sunday. And let me see. I will have to add, show rubric. Here's your rubric. Okay, so you want to make sure you go through the rubric. And then by Thursday, you will need to respond to 2 peers, or you can see in bold, or you can respond in class orally. So if you don't respond to 2 peers in the post, then you can just respond in class. You don't have to come back and respond within the discussion thread. So you have the choice. You can respond in class out loud, or you can respond within the text. So that is your choice. So you also have this quiz. You have your meet and greet. You have your MTSS quiz due today. You have your Understanding Universal Design for Learning. And here it tells you each one that you need to do. This one is not one that you can respond to classmates in class. So this one, you have to make your original post by today, and then you'll have to respond to 2 classmates in class, okay? And it breaks it apart. It says Universal Design for Learning, a concept taken from architecture, supports the practice of making a variety of options available to all students rather than targeting supports only intended to address the needs of unique individuals. Briefly describe your understanding of the 3 areas of UDL: multiple means of engagement, representation, and action. Just briefly tell me how you understand them. And if you don't, that's okay. Consider if and when a support becomes more than UDL. So tell me when it becomes does it become a special education, do you feel like? Respond to at least 2 peers. And it can't just be, I agree with what you said. I agree with what you said because, or I disagree because, okay? And then you need to have at least 1 APA reference and use in-text citations. When you use a reference, you need to have an in-text citation within the body of your text, okay? So I hope that helps. And then you're welcome. So your Tuesday's assignments. On Tuesday, you have your first key assignment check-in. I went over all of the 6 principles of IDEA. You get 3 points for each one, 6 points for going over them in your own words, and then include how they impact classrooms today by giving examples or explanations. So that's how you get all the points. So I would list each principle. I would list the principle. I would define it in your own words, and then I would say how it impacts the classroom. I would state the next one, define it, and then how it impacts the classroom. And then if you use any references, I would definitely include any in-text citations and references. And then the next one, MTSS readings. This one's very brief for Tuesday. Just read it and submit a statement. That is it. For Thursday, these are all completed in class. So anything on Thursday is always completed in class. Don't worry about that. So if you have any questions after you've completed this, please make sure to reach out to me. Again, thank you for your patience and your understanding. I apologize, and I look forward to seeing you Thursday night in class.